Hi, and welcome back to another episode of On Location with Bowen and Mimi. Today we're in Revelstoke with Jackie Harding. And Jackie's recently done a rebrand. So she was Jackie Rhind, but now Jackie Harding. Even though last night I went to sleep thinking, Jackie Rhind, Jackie Rhind.
If you say that, that's okay. That's what's most familiar to me.
No,
still.
I get to introduce you as Jackie Harding.
Excellent.
Maybe one of the first times.
That's great. Yeah.
Jackie's originally from Toronto, moved to Revelstoke about 11 years ago, has worked in construction project management, served on the city council of Revelstoke for a couple of years, and in 2020 launched her Ovry. She is the founder, CEO of Ovry, and she's going to dive into that with us today. But before we get into it, I would just love to hear about how you transitioned from Toronto to Revelstoke.
Yeah. Well, that's a good one. So I never expected to end up in Revelstoke. I took a few summers tree planting when I was at university back in Ontario. And in between years of university, I would come out and I would tree plant and then go back. And I fell in love with the West Coast, just the people and nature and all the wonderful things that all the people who live here come here for and stay here for.
Yep.
And then when I graduated, I moved to Vancouver to see if that's where I wanted to land. I worked there for a couple of years at Canfor, which is like the forestry company. I had done a degree in business. So to me, I was like, oh, forestry, that's kind of like tree planting, sort of, and like business, sort of. And I get to live in Vancouver. And that was okay. I didn't love the city of Vancouver, but I enjoyed being out west. And so then I moved to Revelstoke, initially just for a ski season to ski. And I never left.
So I think you described yourself at one point as being scrappy. And now, in the beginning of the business, I think is how you mentioned that. But what I'm thinking about is how you were a tree planter for a time. And is that where you got your scrappiness? Or was this as a kid growing up? What was your personality like? What were you interested in?
I think the motivation for tree planting, honestly, was that it's piecework. So you get paid by the tree. And I really liked that you got in what you put in. Like I hated the jobs. Like I'd have a few summer jobs like in between years of school. Like I worked at a mortgage company and like whatever. And I was like, this is kind of lame that I'm working as hard as the person I'm working harder than the person beside me, but I'm getting paid the same amount. Like I didn't like that.
Yeah.
So then I thought, oh, maybe I'll go into sales or something. And then I heard about tree planting and I wanted to be outside and I wanted to be out west. And I've always been into nature. So I was like, oh, that would be a cool way of like seeing if I can really make some money. It's obviously pretty hard work, but I loved that you got out what you put in. So I don't know if that really is like scrappiness, but that was definitely the motivation for tree planting.
Right.
And also the motivation behind like entrepreneurship and like generally, I don't know that like the typical desk job was for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Growing up in Toronto, I think there was, and also I went to like school for business. So I always expected my career would be like, or my life would be my career.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of my like friends that I made at school are doing that. And that's great. And they're living also very fulfilling lives, but it's very different focus on your career than in BC and definitely in Revelstoke specifically. And that was one thing I was looking for is more balance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And was that the time where you also then got into being a counselor?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes. Yep. Yeah. It's a lot going on there.
What did you see going on in Revelstoke that inspired you to do that move?
Yeah. So I had moved here in 2014 and I just recognized pretty early on that a lot of the people in the local politics weren't necessarily representative of the kind of new cohort of people moving to Revelstoke, like the younger families or like the young transient people that are like coming for the ski season. And a lot of those needs weren't being reflected at the local level. And I just thought, honestly, it was like a bit not selfish. Like I was kind of like, this is really interesting. I don't know anything about politics. Maybe I could be elected and like represent some of my friends who have moved to Revelstoke and like struggle with the affordability crisis or like are having a hard time getting a job or whatever. And I just wanted to learn more about it, but also it felt like a nice way to also really connect myself to the community. Like I knew I wanted to stay here and I really cared about the community, but I wasn't sure like how, like there's this ongoing, I don't know what the expression is, but like in many towns like this, it's like, oh, you're not a local till you've lived here for 30 years or whatever. It's like there's a big sense of that in Revelstoke. It's like, oh, you're not from here, so you don't necessarily know what it was like before the ski bums came, right?
Yes.
And I was like, well, this would be a cool way of like giving back in some respect and like learning and showing that I'm committed and care about this place. And it was 4 years that I was on council, and they were
4 years. Okay.
yeah, one
Wow.
term is 4 years. And they were like the most amazing, at times very stressful, but like really incredible years of my life. Like I learned so much about the community. I developed so much more appreciation for the volunteerism, the people who make this place as special as it is, like the countless number of hours that are happening behind the scenes to make these programs happen that are offering, you know, after school care or like drop in for people with little kids and just like the stuff that really makes a community. It's like you don't really appreciate that until you're kind of in the weeds. And yeah, council was a really good way of seeing that all and appreciating it all.
So you were, focused on your career at that time and doing this service to the community.
Yes, yeah.
And at that same time, were you starting to have thoughts of Ovry, your company?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
You do have a business partner that
I do,
you started Ovry with.
Yes, Christina.
And I was curious if Christina lived in Revelstoke as well, and did you plant seeds with each other and start brainstorming over glasses of wine, or like how did that materialize?
Yeah, so Christina is an old friend of mine. We actually used to go to camp together. She lives in Vancouver. Cool. Yeah.
Like from Toronto days or Vancouver days?
From Toronto days. Like we were like 15. We went on like a 50-day canoe trip when we were kids. Yeah, it was awesome. And so we were longtime friends that kind of like did our own thing and then reconnected in our 30s or whatever when we both moved out west. Well, I was in my 20s. But anyways, when we both moved out west, we reconnected, and she was living in Vancouver, and she would come out to Revelstoke to visit from time to time. And I had sort of had the idea of Ovry and was working on it quietly behind the scenes without having quit my job or anything. And when she came to visit, I was like, this is, and her whole background was in marketing. She'd worked in marketing for years, and she's a real like brand genius. And I needed help with the marketing. I was more like logistics and operations. And so when I told her this is what I'm thinking of, she was like, oh yeah, like I'm interested in coming on. And so I had sort of put a lot of the groundwork in and done a lot of the like bringing product to life and that kind of thing. And then she really built the brand and the story behind it and all that stuff. And really just like, could not have done the business without her. She's amazing.
Wow. Okay. So this is where we could dive into Ovry.
Yeah, we could dive into Ovry.
Yeah, we could start with, well, a little bit of background about,
sure,
your story, which is that you do have a blood clotting disorder. And I think I mentioned that I had a brother who had he had hemophilia, which is very different than your situation, but both blood disorders. And so that piqued my curiosity when I read that about you and how that actually inspired this idea. Can you share what it was like as a teenager to have that and what that was like?
Yeah, so it's called Factor V Leiden, and it's actually quite common, like 5% of people have it, but a lot of people don't know that they have this disorder because unless you're having a major surgery and you get a blood clot, like a lot of people won't discover that they have that. My dad had it and had a knee surgery that ended up almost killing him with a pulmonary embolism, and then he found out he had it, so we got tested and we have it. Anyways, it hadn't really had much of an impact on my life, aside from the fact that I knew about it early enough on in my life that I wasn't able to take most forms of hormonal birth control. And so I had a lot of anxiety just generally around pregnancy anytime like my period was late. So I was like, well, I don't want a kid. I'm 17. I can't do that. And so anytime my period was late, it would be like a very stressful experience, like running to the store, spending $20, peeing on this giant piece of plastic, and then getting my period 2 hours later or whatever. And it wasn't until kind of like in university days that I discovered that you can just get pregnancy tests at the dollar store. And I was like, okay, this is awesome.
And things have really changed. I'm 56, so
Okay.
things are quite different because
Okay.
you were on Dragon's Den,
Yeah.
and when you smashed the thing open, and
Yeah.
there was an electronic piece in there, I didn't even know
interesting.
that. Yeah.
Okay, that's like a newer,
Yeah.
Okay.
So sorry to.
No, it's all good. Yeah, that's interesting. And I guess to kind of like speed it up, I just realized that like the markups on these products are exorbitant. And to me, that was really frustrating because I was like, you know, when I'll go to the idea of like Ovry, like when I was born, I was peeing on this like little ketone strip, and then it tells you if you're in ketosis. And I was like, oh, this is really cool that it's so small. And I was like, why don't they have these for pregnancy? I was like, it's small, it's discreet, it's not wasteful. Surely it costs less to manufacture than that big digital plastic thing.
Yeah.
And so that's when I did some homework, and I'm like, oh, like these do exist. Like doctors' offices use these, hospitals use these. Like you just submerge it in urine. It tells you if you're pregnant or not. I'm like, why the hell don't they sell this in the pharmacy? I was like, this is
No one else had caught on to this.
not really, no. Like to
Amazing.
the like, yeah. And so like right now to talk about the alternative products, it's like you go, like you said, it's like either this big digital thing where like 1 or 2 tests only in a box, which obviously is not great if you're testing frequently. They cost like up to $30. And it's just way over engineered. And when you take it apart, all of it is a little strip. And then they have all of this digital waste that is spent interpreting the results of that strip test. And it really occurred to me that it's all pretty exploitative, in my opinion. Like it's this over-engineered product. They're trying to charge a fortune because they know that this person is in a very vulnerable place. Like you walk into the store, whether you want a baby or not, it's like you want to know if you're pregnant, right? It's like a very stressful experience. And a lot of the times, like I did this myself as a teenager, I would just pick like the most expensive test. I'm like, well, I need this to work. Anyways, and so just like this realization that there's a much more affordable option, especially for people who are struggling with infertility or people who are having recurrent miscarriages and want to test to see their like level of pregnancy hormone decrease over time, or people in postpartum who want to test for ovulation every day because maybe they're not ready to have another kid. And the other thing that really annoyed me with these products was that they're only ever marketed in one light, which is like that young couple who's always like way too young to actually be excited about a kid. I'm like, why are you jumping in the air at you're positive? You're like 19. That would be horrible news for most people at 19. But it's like this young couple jumping for joy, and they're like, we're pregnant. And it's like, that's the only way pregnancy tests have ever been marketed. But the reality is that for every couple that's excited, there's like probably 100 that are like, please be negative, you know?
Yes, of course.
And the products are never marketed to that audience. And as someone who experienced often a lot of anxiety, I was like, it would be great to have a 10-pack. I would just keep this on hand and like test every month if I want to put my mind at ease. And I was just like, when I figured out that that was possible, but that these products weren't in retail stores, it just made me upset. Kind of, I was like, oh, so they know, but the companies are just,
taking advantage.
And the retailers are as well. And like, I say that, and I'm also very appreciative of the retailers who have carried our products, because that's obviously like part of our success. A huge part of it now is being able to have our products on store shelves. So I'm very appreciative, but like, there was a lot of hesitation to carrying a 10-pack because that retailer wants you to come back every month, or that retailer wants you to spend an arm and a leg, even though that test costs less than 50 cents to manufacture, you know? They're charging $30 for it. Like, it's crazy.
Yes.
Anyway, so that was the motivation, was like both a need, a personal need, as well as a frustration generally that these products were just so overpriced and not available in a convenient way.
Okay, so then we have your friendship with Christina. And she's covering the brand angles. And you're doing the background stuff, the business stuff. And I mean, you know that you survived a 50-day in the wilderness canoe trip, so you can survive the building of this business together. And I think I read somewhere that, you know, you were building boxes on the floor of your apartment. And so again, the scrappiness comes back into this moment, right?
Totally.
Yeah. Do you miss those days of the beginnings of it? Like in the beginning of innovating something?
Yes.
Like, tell me about that.
It's a good question, because I recently have learned about myself that I think that is what I like most about, I mean, I've only started one business, so I can't really say with certainty, but I think like building and pushing something into the world is like where I get excited. And yeah, I do think back fondly on those days because it was very exciting and it felt like a lot of risk. Like if this fails, it's like, oh, it's all on you, you know? That initial phase is like the learning curve is so steep. And I think I really love that. Like if you look at my career trajectory, it's like tree planter, mortgage broker, like not mortgage broker, mortgage company, yeah, project management and construction. It's like very disconnected, but a lot of the themes are like steep learning curve. Like I really love and thrive, I think, in like an environment where it feels like all the cards are stacked against you. It like feels very fiery and like you can't fail. I mean, it's not as dramatic as I'm making it sound, but like I really like that environment.
The early days. Okay, so you and Christina managed to come together with this. The first product was the pregnancy testing kit.
Totally. Yep.
And you had a chance to get it into a pharmacy in Tofino. That was the first one. And I loved hearing that too.
Totally. Yeah. We were trying to peddle our product on all these retailers and we had to go to the independents. And finally, the PharmaSave in Tofino was like, yeah, we'll carry your product. And we were like, yeah, it's very exciting. Every time there's a new milestone, it's like, yeah, excellent.
Wow. And more intimate in those moments of a smaller company versus you get the gig with London Drugs. So very different experience, for sure. I would imagine.
Very much. Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And now 1,700 stores across
3,000.
3,000. Okay, because that was old news that I read.
That's okay. That's
like
okay.
So many things have been happening.
For sure.
Babies are being born. More stores are being added.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it's very exciting. Yeah, we've been increasing our distribution in Walmarts and Rexalls and Jean Coutu's and Shoppers Drug Mart. They're a hard one to crack, but we're working on them. We have some limited distribution in a quarter of their stores, which is awesome.
Fantastic.
Yeah, so it's all been pretty cool.
Right. Okay. Yeah. And is that the whole product line or
that's products? A couple of the SKUs because we have different box sizes. So
okay, could we maybe do a show and tell?
Show and tell.
Yeah.
This here is our 4-pack of pregnancy tests. It's available in like 300 Shoppers Drug Marts and most Walmarts, and I won't go through where they're all available because we have a store locator if you're interested, and I don't think that's very...
We have a great website.
Yeah, great website. So if you do want to see where each product is available, that's available on the website. But yeah, the 4-pack of pregnancy tests, we also have a 10-pack and an 18-pack. And then we have our ovulation tests, which this is our large box, which has 42 tests. And we also have a small box with 10 and a medium box with 28. And then we have our male fertility test, which is the most recent of the product, which is a semen-based test that is used to detect lower than normal sperm concentration in semen, which is really interesting, especially for that audience of our customer base that's like interested in conceiving, obviously. Yeah.
But I think that it's a product that maybe a lot of people don't know about.
Totally.
So if you want to give it a little more
I would love to. Yeah, and this is available in all 1,200 Shoppers Drug Marts. So that's actually the one they've provided us with full distribution for. So if you are interested in getting your hands on this, Shoppers Drug Mart is the place to go. It's just in the same aisle as the pregnancy test. But yeah, so it's a really interesting product because 50% of the time there are challenges conceiving. It has to do with the male partner or like some issue with sperm. And a lot of people don't think of that. Like obviously the burden of infertility often falls on women. And we hear from people all the time, like, been struggling and finally took this test, didn't realize it was my partner. Like he's the healthiest person ever. He runs like, he does triathlons. Like didn't think it could be that. But of course, it's 50% of the equation. So why not? Right. Mm-hmm. So this product, full disclosure, like this isn't like this is not equivalent to a full sperm analysis that you could get if you went to like a fertility doctor. This is more of like an initial indicator that there could be something wrong because low sperm concentration is linked with issues conceiving. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's you deposit your sample into the cup. There's like a little pipette. You transfer it to a little cassette. I'm simplifying it, but yeah, everything you need is in the box, and basically it will give you either a positive or a negative result. Positive meaning that your sperm concentration is normal, a negative meaning that it's low, and that would sort of be your indicator that you might want to follow up with a doctor for further sort of analysis.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Did you and Christina come up with that product idea as well when you were doing your research, or how did that one come
kind
up?
of. Like, we always knew we wanted to incorporate the other like side of the fertility equation because, like I said, that it was really important that women not be the only ones kind of interested or having that conversation even. And we were talking to our manufacturer, and they had a sort of an idea of what could be done. And so we were sort of made the product in conjunction with the manufacturer. But yeah, we always knew that there would be a place for something like this. And even just the conversations that we have with customers where they said, like, I'm so grateful that I have a way to bring my partner into this conversation, because, and a lot of the time men are happy about that too. They're like, you know, my wife is the one, she's like changed her diet. She's taking these medications, you know, we've been trying forever. There's nothing I can do. It's like, I feel so helpless in this journey. And it's finally like, well, no, you don't have to be. Like, this is a way of kind of like buying in and showing your partner, like, I'm also invested in making sure that I'm healthy and that I can do my bit.
Yeah, good to hear that men are stepping up in that
Yeah,
way.
it's pretty cool, actually.
Lots of changes.
Yeah.
And I think that ties into, I don't know if I would call it a tagline or like a mantra or something that you had about from your first period.
Yeah, to your last day of menopause.
To your last day of
Simplify having ovaries. That's the idea.
Ta-da! Exactly.
Yeah.
And also the idea of your big, hairy, audacious dream.
Yes.
Which I hope you're keeping alive.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Can we talk about that?
Would love to talk about that. Yeah, absolutely. So the idea, it's a health cooperative where we would offer all the products from a woman's first period to their last day of menopause. And as a cooperative, the consumers would be owners of the business. So it would be like full price transparency. Like, this is the price that it costs us to manufacture these tampons, for example. Here's our markup. Here's what it costs to like ship them to you, and here's our markup. And then like any profits at the end of the year are distributed to the cooperative members. And, you know, as somebody who is part of Ovry's co-op, you might get a check in the mail for however much every year for just purchasing your basics from this business. And the idea is, like, for the first time in the history of humanity, it pays to be a woman. Like, it pays to have ovaries. Like, it's it's
wow,
like,
love it.
Yeah, it's kind of like, I guess the real motivation behind it was twofold. Like, one, it's weird to me that there's somebody out there, like a Procter and Gamble, like benefiting and profiting off of tampons. I'm like, that's kind of weird. Like, it's an essential. It's not like a luxury good, you know? So like, why isn't there like a really budget friendly alternative? And then I thought, well, what about that for all products that we need, like birth control or pregnancy tests? Like you just name any product that you would need in your life as a woman, and it's like a lot of those are not luxury. I'm not saying there's no place for capitalism, because I think capitalism is wonderful in the sense that it can like have good innovation, and like there are always going to be somebody who wants to pay a premium, and that's great. But like, why aren't our basic needs covered in like a way where we can also benefit from that? And I think when you zoom out and you think, well, like, why do we need a health cooperative? It's like, we have this health gap. Like, it's indisputable fact. Like, and I'm not here to say that like woes us as women, but like, it's just a fact that historical inequity has led to a health gap. We know that 70% of people with medically unexplained symptoms are women, and that women are more than twice as likely to experience severe side effects from drugs, largely because we were excluded from medical research until as late as 1993. And so because this health gap exists, it means that our health needs are kind of like misunderstood, misrepresented, underfunded, misdiagnosed. And like, even though we're making so much progress in the developed world, all you need to do is look to the US to see that like something as simple or as kind of like you would think is no-brainer as your bodily autonomy, even in 2025, is not guaranteed. So when like you take our current environment with the reality that we do have this shrinking but existing health gap, to me, that is motivation for the health co-op. It's like, we need, if you want to protect these really important products and make sure they're accessible to as many people as possible, why not put their destiny in the hands of the people using them? And why not give those people the ability to like benefit financially from them? Yeah, so that's the idea. It's big.
No-brainer.
Yeah,
I
think it's a
would buy
no-brainer.
into that.
Totally.
And I would gift that to other people in my life who would benefit from it.
Exactly. Yeah, I think it's like, I mean, it's obviously is a really big, scary dream, but I just think, yeah, to me, it's a no-brainer. I'm like, I don't know why this doesn't exist.
So is this a dream you're able to work on while you're a mom at home?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah. I mean, obviously, it's been challenging because I'm a new mom, so I've never done that before. So that's my newest, latest, hardest thing. And it is in all the above. But yeah, totally.
Yeah. Jackie, I really appreciate you taking time today to share more about Ovry, but just also about who you are and where you've come from and how you got to where you are today. And
cool. It's been great.
Yeah, and when I say that I'd like to stay in touch, I would like to see where you go with these great dreams of yours. And congratulations on all your success.
Thank you. Yeah. I appreciate that.
Thanks for joining us today with Jackie Harding.